Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm super excited about today's episode because I'm joined by my good friend Tyrone Ross Jr., who is the CEO of Onramp. Tyrone, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. So look, let's jump in. You know the rules. We got to keep this thing to less than 15 minutes. The track behind me, it's 8 furlongs, which is a mile. And we're gonna walk that track in the virtual sense through 8 questions. So how you break from the gate matters. So I'm going to start with an easy one here for you. Tell us about Tyrone. Tell us about your background and how you got into the industry.
Absolutely. So I am a proud first generation high school graduate, son of Tyrone and Shirl Ross. My dad came to this country from Guyana, South America, met my mom, who was a teenage mother. My sister, we believe, was 6 months old at the time, grew up in New Jersey, was on another track to sprint. So got a track scholarship to go to Georgia Tech. It was at Georgia Tech when Mark Teixeira and all those guys was there. Didn't finish there, got kicked out twice. And then finished at Seton Hall where I got into graduate school, and I had a professor mention Wall Street. And I was like, I had no idea what he was talking about. I grew up in a home that was, unbanked and didn't really talk about money. And I was like, he really had to teach me about what Wall Street was. So he kind of helped me go through the whole process. And then I ended up at a small firm called Financial Dynamics, doing investor relations and public relations right there on Water Street, right down the way there from the exchange. And I always tell people, I walked right by the New York Stock Exchange. I had no idea what it was. So that's how I got here. And, went from there to got my Series 7 to 63 in a little chop shop, cold calling, 600 dials a day. And then I ended up at the Wirehouse, and I was at Merrill for 5 years before going independent in 2017. And here I am as the CEO of a fintech company. Go figure.
Awesome. It's a great country.
Yeah.
And I look, your reputation as a sprinter precedes you. So I'm glad that you and I are not racing each other. That track behind me, or frankly, at this stage of my life, any track. I don't want any part of you, my friend. So you mentioned CEO of Onramp. Tell us a little bit about Onramp and the mission and vision of Onramp.
Sure. The mission and vision is simply to be the Plaid of crypto, to allow financial advisors to work with Bitcoin and digital assets inside of their existing workflow, the same way they would Apple or an ETF. And the goal is to do it in a compliant, regulatory manner that advisors can trust. And we'll be Bitcoin only at first, and then we'll expand to other assets. But the goal is to be a trusted source for financial advisors as they move into a frontier asset. And it's funny, I always tell people, you told me when I first took this role, well, the crypto and all that is great, but you better make advisors look smart in front of their clients, right? Educate them. So we'll provide education, we'll provide research. We're going to do mock SEC audits to help advisors get their practice management together. But the goal is for it to live inside of their existing workflow so they don't ever have to use anything external, direct access, free and clear. And again, just to be able to do one thing that we all know is most important is to be a financial planner, right? To be a fiduciary and to show that client what that looks like inside of their portfolio. And believe it or not, it's a really hard thing for advisors to do right now.
So let's talk about education, digital crypto currency. What would you tell not just advisors, but just anyone that's listening to this conversation who's looking to start to get educated about that space and the world that you now live in? Yeah. What guidance would you give them in terms of just getting started?
I think the first thing is to realize that it's still very early. The noise would make you believe that it's late. We're still very early, right? You get mass acceptance before you get mass adoption. And I think we're moving towards mass acceptance. So I would encourage everybody, especially financial advisors, to learn, be conversant, be able to speak to your clients and your kids about it, right? There is a generational shift here where there's a younger audience that's used to being everything digital, especially their money. So I would encourage everyone just to, get good balanced resources that are out there. I think, starting with just simply reading the Bitcoin white paper is a really interesting look at how this all came together. And then once you go from there, I think the resources that we know in the traditional space, Investopedia, Morningstar, and some others have done some basic work if you're a financial advisor. But for the everyday individual, again, Investopedia is a great resource. CoinDesk, which is the largest and most notable crypto media company, is a great resource. I have my podcast there, which is for advisors on all things crypto. But they do a really good job of making it simple and educating folks that are looking to get into the space.
I appreciate that. That's great advice. So, look, as we mentioned, you're CEO now of Onramp, and a relatively new CEO, I guess 8 or 9 months in the role. And as you know, one of the many things that we do at Dynasty is we help launch a lot of new businesses. So we have a lot of first-time CEOs in our community, and you've been an advisor, and part of our practice management program, we talk about advisor to CEO, and the skills that make you a great advisor sometimes are different than the skill set that makes you a great CEO. So maybe talk a little bit about your leadership style and approach, and any advice or guidance that you might have for someone who's stepping into that CEO role maybe for the first time.
So one, my mom would tell me, eat humble pie, right? Humility, right? Lead with humility. And there's nothing that exposes how much you don't know like leadership. Like there's just so much that is out of your control. And I don't even mean know in terms of knowledge base, but when you're running a company, you have a lot of blind spots. As you know, you have to rely on really competent people that you trust and that trust you to give you the truth, to make the best decisions and to be decisive. So I think that humility of realizing you can't see around corners, you got to be able to trust those around you and let folks know that you are touchable, that you can, they can come to you and say, this is good, this is bad, no matter where they are. The athletic part of it is, I just simply believe in an insatiable work ethic. Like I won't be outworked, right? I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful. And I really think that's something to be said for individual sport athletes. When I walk onto a track and I walk in between those white lines, I don't have 10 other people I can rely on, right? The numbers don't lie. And I think that's something that as an athlete, you realize, especially when you're training for the Olympics. I trained for the Olympics, and you have to do something every day for 4 years in the hopes that it works out. So I don't mind the everyday minutia, the grind, and getting into the muck and staying there. Because that's where, I always tell, the young folks that I work with is find out where your pleasure meets other people's pain. And I'm that person. When it starts to hurt, that's when I die. That's when I dig in, because I know you're starting to tire a little bit. So I like that. So I'm going to work 7 days a week. I'm going to pick up the phone when it's heavy in your hand and make those extra dials. So I think that my team is starting to realize that yeah, we're small, but we're mighty. We're going to outwork those who got more money and more resources. I can guarantee you that.
I love it. So servant leadership, taking care of your clients, and just wanting it more than anyone else. And I fundamentally, as you know, I'm a believer that over the longer term, the firms that win disproportionately, frankly, are the ones that just want it more. So appreciate that answer very much. Let's make a bold prediction. This is a vision question, right? So let's look out, let's say 5 years, because that seems like a very long time, in our industry, given how dynamic and fast things are moving now. Whether it's, cryptocurrency, blockchain, what's a bold prediction that people are not talking about right now that has you maybe excited or worried, but as you think about the space 5 years from now?
Decentralized custody. And it's here now, but you can easily end a meeting with RAs if you bring that up. So, which is interesting, because as you know, the largest RIAs use multiple custodians. Decentralized custody is going to be the same way, where an advisor, and especially an RIA, will custody at multiple custodians, and there's something called atomic swaps. So it's instant transferring of assets in that moment, no matter what that asset is. It could be Bitcoin for Tesla, right? and it's an instant transfer. You face all of your counterparties, you see them, it's transparent, and that is going to happen in real time. And it's an impressive thing. It's going to save money. It's going to, it's going to be great for clients, great for businesses, and great for the space overall. I can't wait till RAs get there. It's hard to get them excited about it now. They're like, atomic what? But decentralized custody is going to change our business forever.
So look, we're starting to turn for home now, and I want to talk now, the next two questions, as I see your shirt, Cancel Poverty, which I love that message. I want to talk about the next two questions, things that I know are super important to you, and we've talked a number of times about in the past. And the first topic is around diversity. And as an African-American in financial services, what can we do as an industry? Because we need more talent from everywhere, but specifically as it pertains to people of color, what can we do, in your view, as an industry to attract more people into the space?
First thing is we got to get away from diversity and inclusion. It didn't work. So stop with diversity and inclusion. Representation and equity is much better, right? And once we get rid of diversity and inclusion and start being more representative, right, and giving equal opportunity, that means going to HBCUs and giving more people of color, right, opportunities. And the sooner we get away from diversity and inclusion, the better. Second thing is, I think our industry needs to be comfortable separating Black people from colored people. Our experience is totally different than other people of color in our business. So I always encourage folks, it's okay to say Black or African American, but my experience as a Black man and being called the N-word repeatedly to my face, and being told that if I was going to be successful on Wall Street, I needed to change my name from Tyrone to Tyler, and called a monkey and everything, and still having to go sit across from people who don't look, walk, talk, and act like you. It was a tremendous experience as a Black man in this business that is not unique to other people of color. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think we just have to be honest to kind of separate experiences here. Imagine being a Black woman walking into a room full of men, and then maybe it's mostly white men. So I think we need to be okay with separating that experience. And my experience that I had as a Black man is very unique, right? And it's not the same as a Hispanic man or an Indian man or whatever the case may be. So I think we just need to be careful, not careful, but we need to be comfortable, rather, carving out that experience and saying, all right, well, if we want more Black men, we need to do this. If we want more women, we need to do this. And that is okay to say.
So the second question, which I know this is another topic that's very near and dear to both of us, is around financial literacy, financial inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so important to you? And tell us a little bit about some of the work that you're doing in that regard.
Our industry spends almost $20 billion marketing financial services, and almost 1% on education. I wish somebody would convince me that's a mistake. It's on purpose. So as an industry, we are complicit, but we can fix it. So for me, what I realize is if we are truly going to look at the 60+% of Americans that are deemed financially illiterate, a couple of things need to happen. One, financial literacy has this stigma of that it's for them, it's for those people, the poor people, right? No. Literacy, financial literacy transcends class from top to bottom. There are a lot of rich people who don't know nothing about money either, right? Look no further than sports or entertainers or whatever. They're really good at what they do, don't mean they're good at money. It's the first thing. Second thing is when you look at the segmentation of, who gets access and who doesn't, the financial redlining in this country, the access, the equity of opportunity to get banked, to buy homes, to do all of these things, we have to get into the soil. The seeds are cheap. $1,400 check. Here, figure it out. $600. That's the cheap seed. We need to get into the soil where it's expensive. And that's why I started Learn to Money, my series, because I want to get into schools, every single school in this country. I will not stop until it happens. I wake up every morning dumb enough to believe I'm going to fix it. And Learn to Money is the vehicle to do it. It's a 10-part series where it's paired with curriculum to get into schools and make sure that we arm teachers with a nice video with graphics and everything to show curriculum paired. And then that teacher should be able to call Dynasty Financial and say, hey, do you have 2-3 advisors that could come and spend the day with my children? We get there, we pay off student lunch debt. We make sure that the kids get educated, make sure the kids have Wi-Fi at home, make sure they have hardware. Our industry can do this. And somebody needs to stand up and be big enough to say, you know what, guys, we've been doing it wrong. Let's do it this way. And that's what Learn to Money is. And for me, I'm a big legacy person now. I don't care about my resume anymore. When I take my last breath, I should have left a legacy of financial education in this country, and Learn to Money is just a small way to start that.
Look, when I was a kid growing up in the sticks of Maine, I wish I had access to something like Learn to Money. I would literally get copies of the Wall Street Journal that tourists would bring each summer and give to me. They were a year old, and I would read through it. Obviously, the stock prices were irrelevant, but self-taught in terms of learning the language. Bought a suit for $13, rode a bus, 16 hours to Manhattan, and knocked on doors and got hired. And it was very difficult because I didn't know anyone in New York at the time. And to have to go through that educational process really on my own versus, what you're doing for kids all across the country. I think it's remarkable work, and wish you the best of luck on that. And as you know, I'm a huge proponent and supporter of you in that regard. So last question, as we finish up, what's your big goal over the next 6 to 12 months? What's your Kentucky Derby that you really want to run hard towards attaining?
The same thing that it is every day when I wake up is to make sure that a child that went to bed hungry, the same way that the night before, like I did, and I laid my head down, that we continue to put a dent on child hunger in this country. That is near and dear to me, and something that I work towards every day. And again, which is why I push Feeding America, No Kid Hungry. That may not be the standard business answer, but from a business standpoint, I think I would love to see, Onramp be that trusted resource for advisors. And as we move into the summer and the conference season start to open up, really start to be the brand where we can start to go to BDs and RAs and really just start to get advisors to say, all right, educate us, get us started. And I think that'll be really good as we start to, build ourselves up in the fintech space.
Awesome. Well, Tyrone, thank you so much for doing this with us. You're looking well. So great to see you, my friend.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of you for joining us on another episode of Around the Track.